Mom, I like to propose a dinner optimization plan for 2026. Soccer practice every week. Get back late and you're stressed out about making something fast, but actually nutritious for dinner. When Ashley's mom picked me up, I noticed that she made Blue Apron. It came like a little kit. By the time it was ready, I still had shin guards on. And it was real food, fresh veggies, protein, actual flavor. Take her from the younger generation. We're innovators, keeping a couple Blue Apron meals around. Not the worst idea.
Get $50 off your first 2 orders plus free shipping with code STIR50. Terms and conditions apply. Visit blueapron.com/terms for more.
Welcome to No Question About That. Following Manchester United's 2-0 defeat to Newcastle United, I'm Ed, and with special co-host today, Paul. You may remember him.
Hello.
Hello. How are you
Lovely
doing?
to be here.
Very good.
Yes, always still slightly, I always forget. I mean, I know this is ridiculous, but every now and again it's like, oh yeah, no question about that. It's been called that for
5 years.
an extended bit. 5 years.
Maybe 4. I can't remember. It was
That's crazy.
2019. Actually, yeah. 4
Yeah,
4
5
years.
years.
Yeah.
Wow. How time flies.
How time
And
flies.
Manchester United are absolutely terrible. So it's a lovely Christmas. Like, oh yeah. Oh, do you fancy doing a podcast over Christmas, Paul? Oh yeah, that'll be fun. What I mean, I think I agreed before. Was it Wolves?
Yeah.
With the last. Yeah. I agreed before the Wolves game, and 20 minutes in today, it was like, oh,
Please, can I not?
This is. Yeah. Do we really have to do this?
Well,
I guess we do.
Well, the big story recently has been the beef between 2 popular Manchester United figures. So I can confirm that you and I have not fallen out, despite apparently, I only learned this as of today, that there is a rumor on the internet that we fell out.
Every now and again, people ask me about it.
Yeah.
That's yeah.
It's not true.
Obviously.
It's to do with your Alzheimer's and your need. No. We did not fall out, folks.
No, we didn't.
But-
I fell out with podcasting about these absolute muppets.
Yeah.
Well, one of the reasons is because when they're bad, well, obviously when you do this, you've got to say, oh, they were very bad at the thing they were trying to do, which it feels like, I mean, they can do stuff that I couldn't even, do you know what I mean? Like these, Casemiro, who today was so staggeringly bad. And like he's won 5 Champions Leagues and all. Has he won the World Cup?
Yep.
No, he didn't win the World Cup, but he's won 5 Champions League. He's probably won the Copa America. Who knows who's won the Copa America or not? He's really good at football. But I'm here to tell you, as someone who hasn't kicked a football in any meaningful context, well, in a meaningful context ever in their life, and at all for like 20 years, I thought Casemiro was absolutely terrible today.
Well, we'll get into the details of which players were terrible, all 11 of them. I would suggest that plus the substitutes. Maybe not Kobe Minu. I'm giving a pass on because, it did change when he came on. Yeah, I think it's a good point, really. And it's one I've thought about a lot recently with the debate around Marcus Rashford. Like, of thousands and thousands of boys who play football, a fraction of 1% will ever get to a Premier League academy. Of those boys that get into a Premier League academy, less than 1% will ever make it in the club that they were at. There's probably a slightly higher percentage who make it as a professional overall. So you're the elite of the elite of the elite. The challenge is, of course, it's all relative, right? So relative to, say, Bruno Guimaraes in the Newcastle midfield, Casemiro is absolutely dreadful. Absolutely embarrassingly dreadful. Relative to 99.9% of footballers on the planet, he's brilliant, of course. So it's always that context, right? And that often gets lost in the mix and the discussion. And then the thing I hate more than almost anything and has me feeling like, why am I doing this, is the toxic online discourse, which misses out any of that context altogether and reduces players and performances and teams to 3 or 4 words in a comment against a faceless avatar, right? And it's just kind of feels like, what's the point in any of this? It has no value to anything. And I
think this is, if you didn't used to listen to this podcast when I did it, sorry about this is going to be really boring for you, but I guess a lot of people here did. And I know, because people have been kind enough to tell me, the people that you just don't hear from, never mind, like there's a substantial number of people that you hear from in a positive context, but we have the kind of human negativity bias that hears the toxicity and absorbs that more readily than the kind of kindness and compliments that we've got ever since we started doing this, which is why we did it for more than 10 years together in the first place. But those toxic comments don't represent what it means to people that you put this content out into the world, because there are way, way, way more people who are listening to this and it's keeping them company when they're feeling lonely, or it's providing them with a helpful distraction when they're feeling sad or anxious or whatever it might be, or just like keeping them company on the tube on the way to work or whatever. These things are massive. And you know, I think I've said this before on the show, but like over the years, when you meet people in real life and they have a kind of over familiarity with you, because that's what podcasting does to people, it gives you a parasocial relationship where you really do feel like these people have kept you company. And I've always been like perfectly fine with people doing that, because I really understand what that's like from the being a listener. And so the people who, if I met, I'd feel like I'd known them for years, even though I've never met them. And so that toxic discourse feels like it's the reality of putting content out on the internet, but it isn't. It's the surface layer, like pond scum, like in
exactly.
Don't mean the individuals, but you know.
I was going to say, no way to talk about Brent, is it? Sorry, I can't help myself. Well, yes, I mean, I agree with about 90% of that. The bit I don't agree with is where it translates into the pond scum going out and abusing players on a personal level, so challenging them outside of grounds or whatever has seemed to become the popular thing to do in order to get clout online. And I think that is horrendous. And it like, that's the worst of the worst. The second worst of the worst is YouTube commenters. Undoubtedly. And for the most part, the audio community is very positive. I mean, not always. Most of the time, and you'll see it if you ever check out the Apple reviews that we used to get, but just as true today, most of the time the 1 stars are something along the lines of, I wish these 2 woke fuckers would fuck off, or something like that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, and Sean Dyche, please stop saying that. You know, you've like, point taken.
But that's, you know, the thing I'm saying, I'm not talking about like online content in general. I'm just talking about you doing this.
Sure.
Like that's the specific one you're saying, like, what's the point of it? It's like, the point is there's loads of people who it's like genuinely like making their life better in an active way. Like, people would much rather you did it. Like, literally thousands of people would much rather you did this than didn't. So that's like, that's a, you know, that's
right.
why it's worth it.
And I don't mean sound like woe is me. You know, I put this out there, so I have thick enough skin. Actually, it's the stuff that offends me is not people calling me a cunt, because I'm like, yeah, whatever. I mean, I'm British. We call each other that as a sign of endearment, don't we? But it's more like the contextless and knowledgeless view of individual players. Like, and it particularly annoyed me with the whole Rashford stuff. Because you can separate these 2 things out and go, has he played well for 18 months now? There's barely been a performance, honestly, that would justify his place in the team. And I don't think that is either an egregious comment or hyperbole at all, right? He just hasn't played well at all. And I'd like to see him back to the time when he was really playing well. From this point onwards, it's hard to see it. But what people will say is stuff that they have absolutely no knowledge of around his effort levels, whether he cares or not, even technical stuff like his wages. Totally wrong all of the time. I keep saying that just to like let people know, but it's that kind of stuff really, and the kind of certainty with which they will say it as well, which you probably wouldn't say to someone down the pub lest you get punched in the face.
But I think increasingly that part isn't true. Like increasingly, and you said something about this on a show like a few weeks ago. I can't remember who you were talking to because you've got so many friends nowadays. But you said something, they were talking about how like it's the online fans who are like this. And you said
it seeped into the
not anymore. And today was the absolutely perfect example of that, right?
Yeah, I fully agree with Josh Alexie getting jeered off, or like, well, such a weird reaction. I mean, it was shock if you remember when Ryan Giggs got booed against whoever it was after a series of like pretty bad performances. And it was in the 90s, early 2000s. Can't remember exactly when it was.
Early 2000s, I think.
And it was a shock because you're like, hang on a minute, Old Trafford doesn't do this. And Old Trafford was supporting Ten Hag right to the end, even when everyone except for Jim Ratcliffe could see that this was a total disaster. And so it's just like, hasn't historically not been a thing that happens at Manchester United, and increasingly it is. And it was just such a weird, jarring reaction today. Anyway, mate.
It used to happen to Fellaini.
Yeah.
It happened to Fellaini somewhat frequently. And the thing today, it was like the player wasn't the one that deserved the jeering. So I've been really taken in news that will surprise no one. I've been really taken with Ruben Amorim's whole vibe, like obviously. But the real thing that I was taken by the Amorim appointment is the story of what he did with Sporting, which to me, this is the closest parallel to when we hired Fergie. I'm not saying that Ruben Amorim's going to be Fergie, but no one's ever going to be Fergie ever again. Pep Guardiola isn't Fergie. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's no one who's Fergie. Anyway, the taking Sporting, the scale of dysfunction, like literally fans trying to beat the players up, talk about toxic discourse, literally the fans trying to break into the training ground and beat the fans up. That's the team that he took over, and he broke a duopoly, and that's a huge thing. And he did it multiple times, like won multiple league titles with, it's not like when Ten Hag came in and he'd won a couple of league titles with Ajax with 5 times the budget of the next team in the division. Like, this was not that story. This was someone who'd taken over a complete mess and made them excellent. And the other thing was that he was immensely popular with sporting fans and football fans in general in Portugal, which is a huge deal, I think, because you do need... And then he comes and he gives those opening press conferences in that first interview, and he hits the absolute note perfect sound that he needs to. And that's a huge deal because he's got to make these players believe in him. And he seemed to have the capacity where he would be able to do that, maybe even quite quickly, in a way that someone like Ten Hag definitely never did. And he had the kind of record and all that stuff. So I'm very optimistic about the Amorim signing. Today, looking at the team sheet going, bro, like, what did you think was going to happen?
Yeah. No, it was horrendous. I thought it was a terrible mistake. And we're recording right on the whistle, so I haven't seen his post-match presser or anything like that. But I wouldn't be surprised if he sort of owns up to the mistake. I think he has a sense of accountability, at least I feel it early on, and it's very early still in his time, a sense of accountability that Ten Hag never had. Like, just never. It was always someone else's fault. Not in the kind of toxic way that Mourinho did it, but still, he just didn't take accountability. And I thought substituting off Xerxes was less about the player. He wasn't any worse than any of the other players on the pitch than it was about the realization that he needed more legs in midfield, and Kobbie Mainoo would do that, and he pushed Eriksen further forward. He could have taken Eriksen off just as easily, and that would have solved the problem in the same way. So we'll see with Amorim whether he really does take responsibility or not for his mistakes, but I thought that was a pretty bad one today. And since we kind of segued into the game, I thought the other really bad mistake, which I just hate so much with this system, is playing 2 fullbacks in wing-back areas, because it does 2 things. One, a tendency for, especially today, for them to get pushed back and to make a flat back 5. That is not the point, right? It doesn't make you more likely to be successful or concede fewer goals. Just look at it, like they conceded goals today. And then it means when you do get forward into attacking areas that you have fullbacks and defenders in attacking areas who just can't do the same things with the ball that your most creative attacking players can do. And I'm like, well, that is not the template he had at Sporting, where he did tend to have at least one very attacking player in fullback positions, and that's where he started with Ahmad in the right wing-back slot. So it's a lot to do with availability generally in the squad of the types of players that he wants. There doesn't appear to be that many that really fit his system, which is unfortunate and tells us it's a long-term project. And also he doesn't trust some of the players. And then today in particular, Manuel Ugarte and Bruno Fernandes suspended, which didn't give him any options, basically. And Kobbie Mainoo they're clearly managing his minute post that injury. And I suspect, given how much he played in his first season, coming back from injury, straight into the team, 40 games in a row, basically without a break, and then gets injured. What a surprise that they're going to just protect him and manage him and think about the long term with him. So it's not like I was super, super shocked about him changing things around. It's just you look at the team and you go, we haven't got a chance, have we?
They're just going to get destroyed in the middle of the park.
Yeah.
I mean, Gary Neville, who is a difficult listen, I think it's fair to say, on United commentaries, said something absolutely spot on and very to the point and very Gary Neville-y, but in a good way. He said, if you're either Casemiro or Eriksen, the last person you want to see alongside you is the other one. You want to look and see someone young with legs.
Yeah, for sure.
Because you can't do that. And that first goal, I just breeze through them, and then you expose the kind of danger and vulnerability of that defensive system, where if you don't block the cross, is staggeringly bad individual defending. I'm no expert in this, but it looked to me like Martinez in particular, because he's the one that can see where the player is. And Maguire almost looks worse for Maguire, but it feels like what is Maguire supposed to do in that? Isn't he just supposed to put himself somewhere where he thinks he might be able to get the ball? But Martinez is seeing the man and just not engaging with him in any way. It seemed strange.
Maguire was excellent against City recently, where he had a kind of physical person to battle with. He likes that. He's good there and does box defending well. I think when you have a fairly dynamic forward line, as Newcastle did today, Isak, who is excellent in all phases of the play, Anthony Gordon, who runs at people, two attacking fullbacks, of course, who put in really decent balls. I actually, when I was thinking about doing a preview for this, I was going to do the preview with Adam, and of course it's Christmas, so everyone was sort of busy and schedules changed and all of that. And I wrote out a script thinking I'd do a monologue, and then at the last moment last night decided to just not bother because I just couldn't. I just didn't feel like doing a monologue. I'd put in there exactly these comments. This is where I think that Newcastle. And if anyone wants the receipts, I've got the script. Before you hear, I've got the script. I'll put it online if you want. This is exactly how Newcastle will hurt United and why I think that United are in real trouble in this game. But so those attacking fullbacks and the dynamic nature of the forwards together with Newcastle's sort of very well coordinated high press, which creates a lot of turnovers. And then in the middle of midfield, Guimaraes is probably the best central midfielder in the Premier League at the moment, I think, or up there anyway. And Tonali, who's kind of, I didn't like him versus Barada at Inter. I think Barada's just a much better player, but Tonali is brought balance, that midfield just playing deep. Anyway, all of these things together point to some real challenges to United, and they kind of played out like that in both the goals. And then that is the 8th game in a row United have gone behind. And a number of those have been early goals like this one as well. It's just, you're like, fucking concentrate, guys. Can you not give us 5 minutes at least without conceding?
And this is the thing that I find interesting, because obviously the tactic stuff is kind of interesting. But the thing that's fascinating to me is what happens then when against City, and it's partly like Bruno's not there in this game, which is a huge factor in the vibes, because Bruno has something about him in moments like that. But the vibes were so off in this game. And there's just these little things where it's like that Maguire header is going to hit the post in a game like this because the energy is just off. The confidence is so shot. There are so many, because like whatever you think of Diogo Dalot's relative ability compared to other professional footballers, elite professional footballers, but in relation to the conversation we were having earlier, he's perfectly capable of playing a pass out to the wing that finds the man, or the pass inside that finds the man, and he's just knocking it out into touch every 5 minutes. Like everyone's heads drop, everyone completely, like there's a kind of collective implosion in on themselves where absolutely nothing's working. Casemiro looks like he's a complete passenger, and when he's shooting, it's like from 30 yards out and it's miles over the bar. You know, those kind of decisions, and you get this like attacks break down because one of the United players commits a niggly foul. One of the United attackers fouls a Newcastle defender in a way that was really avoidable and obvious. It's just that thing that happens to teams in moments like this where they just look so much less than the sum of their parts. And the sum of the parts isn't great. So when you're also looking like everyone's playing with a kind of, if it was a video game, they'd all have like a debuff on them where it's like 10% off your passing ability immediately, just, you know, that collective confidence. And that's the thing that Amorim's like total lack of new manager bounce is just weird, especially given the wave of like what of how he comes across and all those things. Maybe he's massively I'm not saying I think this is the case, but like maybe he's just really two-faced and he's really hard and horrible in the dressing room, but that doesn't seem to be the case based on the fact that every Sporting player seems to absolutely love him and they've fallen apart completely since he's left, you know.
Right, well, they really have, and fired their interim. Well, he wasn't an interim, was he? He was the B team manager that they promoted up and then fired him very quickly afterwards. Yeah. Amorim apparently didn't even give a team talk after the Wolves game. He just walked away and let them stew in it, which is, I mean, there's vibes there, I guess. Andy Mitten in his, well, I will come on to this, I think. Andy Mitten in his piece with TalkSport recently called him the smiling assassin when it came to Marcus Rashford. And yeah, that may well be true, I'm sure. I mean, to make it as a manager at any kind of top club, and Sporting is a top club, you had to have an edge to you, and I'm sure despite the very sort of personable vibes, he has an edge to him and he's going to make hard-nosed decisions. He's made some hard-nosed decisions already and he's going to have to make some more in order to get this squad fitting with what he wants in terms of his system. I guess we as fans, and especially the club, have got to have a fair amount of patience. We made that decision to be patient with him and say, once you instigate a system that is so wildly different and doesn't appear to fit the squad. And it's a squad that is very much built for Ten Hag. I mean, two of the starters today were Ten Hag, were Ollie players. Everyone else was a Ten Hag player. So it doesn't, like, it's not an easy fit. He could have taken the easy decision and gone, okay, we'll play 4-2-3-1. It's the system everyone's familiar with, and we'll just limp through the rest of the season. And maybe we would have got the new manager bounce then, because it would have been bides and tactics. And I'm sure he's quite able to coach that system. He himself insists it's not about the system and seems a bit nonplussed by the debate around that. And he thinks about it in terms of phases of play and principles, what you do in certain situations rather than tactics in aggregate, right? And maybe that's true. I'm not a coach, you know, so like tactics people online say something like that. So he could have taken the easy route out, and the club, that would have been easier for the club as well, I suspect. He hasn't. He's taken some pain. He said there would be a storm. We're certainly getting it. It would be nice that the storm wasn't so bad that we got relegated. I mean, still seems unlikely.
There's just us and City going down together.
That'd be great, wouldn't it? City kicked out of the league, us relegated legit. Or maybe they could...
No, them relegated legit too.
Well, if they got relegated legit and the Premier League found against them and relegated them as well, would they get 2 relegations? Or is it like concurrent sentences? You know, you get done for murder and having a weapon. Or would you get like one after the other? Like, once they got promoted up, they'd be like, okay, now fuck off again. And we relegate you back down. Anyway, that'd be nice, wouldn't it? I guess we had to take this pain. It's just it looks so disjointed in every phase of the game. United weren't able to build up today. We couldn't defend. It's comical, both goals. We were not able to get into good positions. We had a few shots, but the XG's well under 1, and we had 1 shot on target, right? It's that old David Moyes thing about United need to improve their passing, shooting, defending.
But that's exactly what it was, right? It's like everything that you are supposed to do in a football match well, United did badly. And there were like 2 5-minute periods where we looked all right, basically 1 in each half. Copy came on, things looked a bit better. as they always were when Cobby's there. But then in the second half, there was a period where they had like the ball for ages and ages and ages, and then we sort of shook awake, and the Maguire diving header. Maguire has to be the Premier League player most likely to score a diving header, right? Like there's something very right about Harry Maguire doing a diving header. But anyway, that hits the post, and maybe if that goes in, it sparks something. The crowd are so flat, which you can understand because these are the people that have sat through the Wolves game. They're the people that travelled away to see, the City game was fantastic, but there's sort of been quite a lot of that in the last 10 years, hasn't there? I mean, there's been terrible games against the big teams, but there's also been like quite a few like, oh, look, maybe we're good after all. Oh, no, we can just raise our game for the big games.
It's almost become an internet meme. What's the worst game in the post-Ferguson wilderness years, right?
This was up there.
This was up there with all of them, right? There's so many. I mean, especially in the last 3 years, there's been a lot of unbelievably bad and incoherent games.
But we're not in the post-Ferguson years anymore, right? Like this is we are more than. It's 2020. It's the end of 2024. He left in 2013. That's 11 years. That's the scale of gap. Like how many managers did United? How long was the Dave Sexton era and the Ron Atkinson era? And there's one more. I think that covers one more. Like it's a huge swathe of time, 11 years. And we're in the post Ten Hag. Now we really are. We're in the post Ten Hag era. We're in the post Ollie, Mourinho, Van Gaal, Moyes, which
makes the question:
gone.
how long until we're in the post Amorim era? No, I'm kidding.
No, but I mean, it's not. One of two things are going to happen. He's going to dramatically transform the fortunes of the team, or we'll be in the post Amorim era in 18 months. And I think there's a better chance with him that it's the former. But you're looking at it right now, you're going, good job, he's really charismatic, and you have reason to have faith and belief in this because it has started almost as badly as it could possibly have started.
Yeah.
The Rashford thing is super interesting because obviously it's kind of divisive, right? The Rashford thing. And I don't think there's a United player who I root for more than Marcus Rashford. I don't think there's been since his arrival in the team. Like, it was such an incredible story. He's been such an incredible ambassador for the club, and credit to his family and himself and all of those things in various moments. The stuff in the COVID era was absolutely incredible what he did and how he put himself out there, and who knows what that's cost him. I just don't imagine that that's an easy ride when that happens. And we know that he doesn't necessarily have the same PR team that he had at that point, and a lot's gone on. A lot's obviously gone on. Like, you could just see it in his face and in the performances, and a lot that we don't know about has gone on.
Yeah, for sure.
That I would just bet my bottom dollar. And I was reading an old football magazine that was in a pile of magazines. So I moved house, and it was in a pile of magazines of just stuff I hadn't got to. And it was 442 from the end of the 22-23 season. So not ancient history. They did a ranking of the 50 best Premier League players. Marcus Rashford was number 3. That's how good he was. I mean, you could have argued at the time whether that was accurate or whatever, but this is where he's one of the best players in the league in a very obvious way. And the cliff that he's fallen off, it's I don't understand how anyone's reaction to that is anger.
Well, it is. It's anger, and it's very dismissive about him, and dismissive about that. And the fact that he took on the government and took on the establishment in a very sort of open way and won led to a lot of very negative stories about him, right? And I cannot but help that has seeped into the consciousness. And then there's obviously some fairly toxic fan channels that took it upon themselves to start a campaign, basically. I don't know what other way to say it. Hundreds and hundreds of posts and videos about him, which were not very balanced, I think. At the same time, perfectly all right to say his performances for 18 months have been pretty dreadful, and I can't actually mentally think of one right now. There probably are, where I'd gone, okay, that's the Rashford of old, right? So, and it's okay to separate these things out. But I mean, I mentioned Mitten, and I think he's someone in the United community who's very well respected, both as a journalist and as a fan. It's very obvious when you listen to him or read his stuff that he has to walk the line between being a journalist that has access and a fan that would like to say different things. And that's probably a challenging position for him. In that piece with TalkSport, which I have to say is that it's not the media establishment I would use to have a conversation about a Manchester United player in a rational way. They're just not that, right? I'm not...
not just a Manchester United player, right? Like any high-profile person.
Yeah. I don't see them as a media outlet that's anti-United to some fashion. I just think that United are the biggest club in the land. They're the ones that drive the views and the clicks and support the business model, and they focus on United a lot, and negative stories drive more engagement. Like, there's plenty of research out there that shows this all the time. And so they focus on United an awful lot with some, I'd say, less than intellectual pundits who boil things down to the most simplistic things. So anyway, little surprised that he chose that as an outlet to say what he said, which was, I've spoken to managers over many years and all of them have had, quote, an issue with Marcus. And I had an issue, honestly, with Mitten saying that because it's too vague. Give me details and specifics. Otherwise, it doesn't really count for much because, surprise, surprise, everyone has filled in the gaps. What does that mean? Issue. I don't know what it means. Is it about performances on the pitch? Is it about training levels? Is it about the off-the-field stuff like supporting charities or going to his old school to give out Christmas presents? The stuff that people online call PR. Is it about the fact that he does not do sit-down interviews with media very often, or almost never, and distrusts the media? I think that's well reported and fairly well accepted, right? Surprise, surprise, he got years of negative press. Does he trust the media? No, he doesn't. Even someone who is a United supporter like Nickton. So I found that not awesome from someone I respect, don't know him at all, never met him. And so I'm sure he and many others would point out all the many mistakes I've made, which are multiple and on the internet for all to read, hear or see for the last 20 years.
Yeah, and from a journalistic perspective, it's perfectly reasonable to say something like that. I mean, obviously we're taking this as on the basis that it is true, that, he's literally reporting some degree of truth, but there's a lack of detail in a tabloid world. It's a great tabloid line in the tabloid world, isn't it? Yeah. And I don't make United content on the internet anymore, so I can say what I like, and I think it's bang out of order, but that's fine. Like most of what people do, I think it's bang out of order. The problem with saying something like this is you're throwing it straight into the undertone. It's like the undertone is the overtone now, because the undertone is just super, super amplified by this. And this isn't me saying like, oh, the kid's a saint and he's never done anything wrong. And, because I don't know anything about that. But these managers that all had an issue with him sure did pick him a lot for Manchester United. Do you know what I mean? And how many managers, like Fergie, how many people in that United team would you say, Fergie didn't have regular issues with? How about some of the all-time great, all these managers have had it, oh yeah, they've all had issues with Marcus Rashford. I wonder if Alex Ferguson ever had issues with I don't know, Manchester United's all-time leading goal scorer Wayne Rooney, for example, or Roy Keane, did the single most force of nature, inspirational, maybe United's most important ever player by some metrics. I wonder if Fergie had any issues. Eric Cantona, he had to get on a motorbike and drive through Paris to find him in a restaurant to talk him out of retiring. People have issues.
They do. In football, happens all the time, and how you get over them and how you move on is the thing that matters. And yes, Rashford has been picked by all of those managers. Ten Hag, Oli Van Gaal, Mourinho, and, not Amorim. A couple of times Amorim.
But even, sorry to bang on even, but it's then you go, yeah, well, yeah, but he's been crap for a year and a half. It's like, yes, absolutely. I think he should leave United. Definitely. Everything about this is like, kid, give yourself a break. Like, get out of here. You're not doing any favors to the club. I can't believe this is a world in which the club's doing favors to you. Like, it's not helping him to be at United. But how people are like, get out of my club, you lazy, blah, blah, blah. It's like, what are you talking about? This is a kid who's who sacrificed. This kid didn't live with his family when he was 12 years old or 14 years old. He moved to Diggs to be near Old Trafford to live out a dream. Now, he's not the only one who did that. That's the sacrifice it takes. But the sacrifice, how you're looking at the Rashford, like I said earlier, I'm repeating myself now, but how you're looking at that Rashford situation and your reaction is to be angry with him rather than sad for him. You're making a lot of assumptions about people.
Oh, for sure,
I
yeah,
believe.
yeah, and that's where I get into trouble because I will challenge people making those assumptions all of the time. Show me the evidence. I've looked hard, and I cannot find the significant amounts of data that prove any of these points. One, on wages, people are really angry about that. The other is on pressing. He's never had good pressing numbers, so why that's an issue now is only an issue because he isn't scoring goals. The other on work rate. Not obvious to me either on total mileage or number of sprints, which I think is a better metric for forwards, that he is working less. I mean, he literally wasn't asked to do that for his first season under Ten Hag and then was asked to cover a left back that didn't exist in the second. So I don't find good data for any of these arguments. People make them all the time without evidence and without context. And that's the thing that generally annoys me and gets me into trouble because I will challenge that. And say, show me the receipts, because for the most part you don't have it, and that's the thing that I found disappointing about Mitten is that it threw something out there into the overtone, without the receipts, and just saying equivalent to "trust me, bro." I don't think was good enough,
and so, I think you do sometimes have to say that as a journalist, right? You have to say, "Look, I can't."
But he said all of
give
them.
You this,
so he didn't need to name names. He just needs to say. One manager had an issue with his training. The other manager had an issue with him going out drinking, which we know publicly, right? He went out, got shit-faced in Belfast for 2 nights in a row and lied to the club about it and was very publicly defenestrated as a result. And kind of rightly so. Maybe not the defenestration, but the getting dropped from the team and the discipline around it. Perfectly fine. You expect that in a sporting context. Most of the rest of it, like, I just found that receiptless and contextless. And I don't think that was awesome. With a publication I have no respect for, from a journalist I do. So that's kind of my disappointment, I think. So, anyway, we've gone off course. We were talking about the game, but
it's pretty. Yeah, okay. In summary, it was absolutely catastrophic and continued United's desperate attempt to ruin everyone's Christmas. Like, if you were scraping together a decent Christmas and you'd kind of forgotten, was it Boxing Day that we played last? I think it was. Like, you'd managed to kind of get over that. It's like, okay, well, I've had those nice kind of quiet couple of days in between. And this is for the people who have had a good couple of days, let alone for the people who this time of year is absolutely horrific.
Which is many.
Like,
yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was, by the way, also my birthday on the 22nd when I got up.
They were in that too.
When I got up at 6 in the bloody morning because I'm stupid enough to have moved to America. My own fault. Have no one to blame but myself for that nonsense. But yeah, they ruined my birthday too. Ruined my birthday, ruined my Christmas. Now they're ruining my New Year. Thank you, Manchester United, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, there's always the kind of like, I mean, thanks for the 13 league titles during the absolute peak of our lives. That was good. We'll give you that. That was enjoyable, but it's getting rough out here now. I wonder, you watch a game like this and it feels like nothing good can ever happen again. So sorry to talk about cricket. It's almost inevitable. It's going to happen at some point, right? But like the Border Gavaskar Trophy is happening at the moment, which is a test series between India and Australia. And in the first test, India destroyed Australia, mostly because of one bowler who is Jasprit Bumrah, is like the best bowler in the world by an order of magnitude at the moment. And he just wiped the floor with them. There was so much discourse after that about what a state Australia were and how all their players were getting old and all this stuff. And Australia have won 2 out of the next 3 tests and only didn't win the other one because of rain. It's like the thing that has just happened is not going to necessarily be the thing that happens next. And United aren't going to be this bad. My personal, this has yet to be unseated. It's not factual, it's experiential. My worst game since Fergie was Norwich at home, December 2015. Like Van Gaal was sacked in 16, right?
Yeah, and that came in a period of what? Did we lose 3 games in that December or something like that in a row or something like that?
I think so. And then we went on a real run, and he won the FA Cup and nearly scraped into the Champions. It was just that game against West Ham. West Ham at the end of the season. Should know what would happen there, eh? But talking for scars of the 90s. But that's my worst ever United game, and we were pretty good for a bit after that.
Yeah, sure.
Might be pretty good for a bit this season.
Yes, might be. There may be a little time to turn it around because there's 1 training session per week at the moment, or 2, or something like that, and they'll have a warm down tomorrow on the 31st, and they will train on the 1st and the 2nd, and then they've got a game on the 3rd or the 4th. I can't remember what it is. Liverpool, isn't it? And then the Arsenal Cup game. Yeah. What happens next, of course, Paul, is that England go to Australia and lose 5-0 next winter. That's what happens next. I'm just telling myself that so I can, anything better than that is all right. And this is obviously a pretty decent England side.
Yeah, but they're still going to lose 5-0 in Australia, right? And lose 5-0 to India in the summer in England. But
no, not in England. That won't happen. United aren't quite where Australia are because Australia have enough very good players. I mean, when the player that's saving you is batting number 10, and sorry for the cricket chat, everyone. We do get good numbers in India, by the way. Not so many in Australia. What are you, Aussies don't like United or something? I don't see where United necessarily have the players to turn it around in this system with this manager. It is going to take a little bit of spending, and it's less because I think you can do some football manager thing and list 15 players and then do the business for 15 new ones coming in. I just don't believe that's going to be true.
Can't do it in Football Manager anymore,
right?
Let alone real life.
There you go. It's 20 years since I played that, so clearly my references to both football and Football Manager are late 90s.
Well, I was just going to say you can do it in FIFA, but that doesn't even exist anymore because I'm like that. I've aged out of that too.
So it's going to take some time, and partly it's because I don't think he can magically train players to be something completely different than they're not, and that is good. So you look all over the pitch, you'd say we should have some comfort in the back 3, but they are making a very good case for them not being very comfortable in this back 3. I don't like the wing backs there. Just Mazraoui, I very much like as a very intelligent footballer. I don't think pounding up and down that wing and being 2 players in one is his. He's just not that physical. Dalot is just not good enough, and he's on the wrong side to do it on the left side. Central midfield, obviously, Casemiro and Eriksen have just aged out of being in this team. We're putting a lot of store on Kobbie Mainoo and Ugarte, which I think has promise, but I just questions, especially around Kobbie's progressive passing, which I think just needs to improve. He's 19, plenty of time. And then in forward areas, Marcus, we've talked about, I thought he might be a better fit for the system. Doesn't appear to be so. And Alejandro Garnacho is not a good fit for the system. And Josh Zirkzee, who feels out of his depth at the moment. Potentially more to come from him. And then Bruno, who is the most number 10 of number 10 since the position was invented, being asked to play sort of left side, inside, forward in this system as well doesn't seem to suit him. I don't know who it suits, honestly, and that's a very long way of saying there's a lot of work to do. If you're going to make this decision as a club to go with this type of coach, then you're going to have to back it.
Yeah, and you're going to have to do it quickly, because if he has the last, obviously, let's assume it's a bit better. There's a few more results here and there, but generally speaking, the rest of the season is broadly what's happened in the last month. You're going into the summer transfer window going, oh God, we're going to have to throw all the financial weight of the universe behind another manager who doesn't have any goodwill, is constantly being hounded by the press. Any fan that didn't like his appointment in the first place is going to be baying for blood by the summer. He's got to do something he's got to show something between now and the end of the season.
He does.
And one of the things that I haven't talked about at all is Jim Ratcliffe. Like, I've never been able to talk about Jim Ratcliffe on this podcast, maybe once or whatever, but like, this guy's decision making is real bad. Like, he seems like he is really bad and probably quite dumb as well.
Wow.
Which is a really bad combination.
Yes, it's billionaire dickhead syndrome, isn't it? You know, you're good at one thing and you think you're good at everything. I feel like I may have coined that phrase, but anyway, I wish to be associated with it. The billionaire bit, and maybe the dickhead bit as well. No. Yes, I think he's a wrong one. Big surprise. He's a Tory Brexiteer who has the political and social views of a 70-something-year-old man that lived in Monaco because he doesn't want to pay any tax. Wow, he's a wrong un. What a fucking surprise. So him being a wrong un surprises me not one little bit. The fact that I favoured him in the bidding process was because the Glazers are even more awful. Let's say some of their political views are even more toxic than Sir Jim's. And obviously they've been very bad for the club. And then I did not want United to become a state-owned or state-aligned entity that is there solely for the glorification of a state, right? Any state, but particularly one that's an abusive autocracy. So he was the best of three bad options, and they're really, really bad options. In terms of decision-making, like, He talked a good game at first and said, we're going to put a structure around the manager to support the manager, went out and hired a bunch of people that you could legitimately point to and go, hey, they're probably good people. Omar Barada, senior within the City Football Group. Dan Ashworth, everyone liked him as a sporting director. Jason Wilcox, he'd done a very good job with the U teams at City and went to Southampton. Obviously not very experienced, but Barada must rate him. Brivel on the recruitment side, bunch of data and analytics people, right? You're like, oh yeah, that looks about right. But then it didn't work out with Ashworth for whatever reason. They made a horrendous decision around Ten Hag in the summer. It makes no sense that they kept him, and it cost the club £20 million and has written off 2 seasons, or this season, as a result. And then there's all the other stuff, these cuts to staff. I don't know how some of it could have been avoided, because clearly they have to cut costs because United are not making the revenue. It's like the costs.
Yes, let's take the drop out of the ocean. Like,
yeah. No, I know the aggregate of all the change. Like, the staff costs are about 45 million, about 35 million net, because they had to pay people off. Obviously, redundancy packages. The 35 million pound is one Josh Xerxes. Would have been better to keep 250 people in their job, pay the foundation, support the women's team, pay the stewards properly and their bonuses, and the former Manchester United Supporters Association not put the prices up for disabled car parking and all the other things that have happened. Oh, and price rises for tickets, and not by Josh Xerxes. Yeah, probably. I'm picking on him because it's the same figure, not because I hate Josh Xerxes or anything like that. So,
of course, and the price, I'm sure you have talked about this ad nauseum, but the ticket price thing is the pain and anguish of this. Like, this is it's so, and it definitely makes it harder. Like, the team being aggressively rubbish makes it harder to engage with anyway, because it's so much less enjoyable to watch the team playing. Oh, I got to support the team through thick and thin. Yeah, sure. I'm not talking about, like, you don't have to enjoy it, right? Like, but then when you're like, what is this all about? Who are the we that is us? This is, and then the Glazer ownership was terrible, but there's at least everyone agreed about that. Like, there's so many people, like, anyway, yeah, it's so sad. Like, this is the thing I feel about Man United, make me feel very sad. And there are things about it that make me feel angry as well.
Yeah. And ticket prices should make people feel angry. And it augurs something awful for the future, because we've got the ticket price rises in mid-season. It's totally weird time to do it anyway. But it's the flexibility they had, because they can't just jack up the prices for season ticket holders. But it augurs for next season's prices, and a lot of people are going to be priced out of doing the thing they really love, which is going to see Manchester United. Why they really love it is because we're all addicted not because we love the product on the pitch, but yeah, for sure. Look, in a non-PSR world, you could make an argument to say that Sir Jim, with his many, many billions, he owns about 60% of a company that produces revenues of 60 billion a year.
What's it making its money from?
Petrochemicals, plastic pellets mostly, but yeah, it's a terrible, terrible business.
Are plastic pellets causing any significant harm to the earth in general?
It's a terrible company and he's a terrible owner, but you could make a legitimate argument in non-PSR world that he would be able to put his many billions to use to right the ship. So if we didn't have PSR constraints, he could come in, wipe out the debt. Not that he would only owning 28%, but like, let's imagine a world in which he owns it all, because that will probably come true within the next 2 and a bit years or so. He could wipe it all out, inject cash into the club, and none of this would be necessary. Or maybe he'd do it anyway because he just believes in running businesses like this, which may well also be true, right? But the thing that gives me pause, like when a lot of people online are like, he's Ratcliffe, capital R, capital A, capital T, and he's just like the Glazers, or he's Glazers 2.0. Is I think the outcome he wants is something different. The outcome the Glazers wanted was cash in their pockets. Clearly, that's all they've ever cared about. The outcome Ratcliffe wants, since it's a legacy purchase, the vanity purchase, is for him to be the saviour of Manchester United, right? He's 71. He's not got that many years left on the planet. This is the thing that will define him more than all the billions he's made out of running a petrochemicals company, more than his time in private equity, for sure, right? Because this is the thing that 1 billion people on the planet are looking at and either enjoying, hating, or laughing at. And so this will shape his legacy more than anything else. So I'm sure he understands that and wants to get it right. It's just like he's going, oh, well, in order to get it right, the thing I have to do is cut all these marginal things. It's awful. So
I would like to say that even though I have unquestionably hinted at it, I haven't overtly mentioned politics once yet today. Yeah. But this is my first go. I'm about to. On election night, one of these awful Tories who was getting ousted was talking about the NHS and saying, well, Labour can do what the Tories can't do, which is what the NHS really needs. And of course, what he meant was private equity, which is not what the NHS needs in any way. She's the last thing the NHS needs, but that's another conversation. But Ratcliffe can put the prices up in a way that the Glazers didn't, right? For a long time, they froze season ticket prices, and they probably wouldn't have done this because he's got the new owner bounce enough that there isn't going to be, he's made the calculation that there isn't going to be the scale of protests and walkout and all that kind of thing that would be necessary to actually move the needle on something like this. But that is devastatingly sad because, of course, the reason why people go to football, well, I would imagine there are 73,000 different reasons that people are in that place. But there's a lot of people that are going there because it is community.
For sure.
It's like, that's the thing that it is in a world which is so desperate for community. And the point at which you're most desperate for community is the point at which your personal resources are the most stretched, right? In lots of ways. Or at least community is the most difficult to access when your personal resources are the most stretched. So to take that away, it's like, oh man, what? You started the show by saying, what's the point of any of this? And I'm going to end it by saying, what's the point of any of this?
Yeah, well, look, United's finances are in such a shape that there may be none of this at some point. No. It's not that bad. Actually, to be honest, under the Glazers, I'm not saying that administration or anything like that was on the cards because United's leverage, their debt to equity or revenue ratio is not that bad in business terms, right? We owe 537 million net pounds. So cash we have in the bank, which is not that much, firstly, all those loans. And the big loan matures in 27 when they'll have to refinance. There was plenty of room for United to keep borrowing money. They borrowed quite a lot in the last few years as a line of credit. They doubled the line of credit. And as I understand it, there is a prospectus out there. Well, actually, I've seen it. There's a prospectus out there to raise another 400 million from banks as well. And then there's another 400 million owed to other clubs, 202 million of which is owed in the next 12 months, right? Financially, it's really bad and it's as bad as it's ever been. since the PIC loans were in place in 2005 to 2009, when then they refinanced with the bond issue, which started the green and gold protest, right? Because it all became transparent then, right? So, and that was really, really risky, by the way. If they hadn't had the big inflation in broadcast at that time, United would have been in a very bad position because the club was paying out £100 million a year in interest and some repayments. Now it's different in that our interest is about 20 million. There's not going to be dividends anymore. So that's the total cost of the debt is about 20 million. It's all piled up in such a way post-COVID, and United's been making a loss every single year since COVID, that the club's in a really bad position. Now, they guided in their last financials that there's 150 to 170 million in EBITDA, so free cash flow, basically. The problem is it's all going to be eaten up with money we owe other people. And there will likely, and it may feed back into our conversation about Marcus Rashford, there will likely need to be a big sale to reorganize the finances, both on the wages side and the incoming transfer fee.
But in this market, Marcus Rashford, I mean, I love Marcus Rashford. If I was running PSG, I might be like, come on. What's the worst that could happen? But who's going to spend an amount of money that's going to move the needle on that kind of debt on any of our players? Any of them?
Well, Paul, luckily for you, I've just written my this week's Substack, which I wrote last week and delayed it to this week, on exit scenarios for Marcus Rashford. There aren't many options. So if you discount Premier League clubs, which you probably should, although United sold Jadon Sancho to Chelsea, so maybe there are options. I'm not saying Chelsea is a viable destination. I'm just saying maybe there are options, but I kind of doubt it. Then you're looking at around Europe. Real Madrid could afford him. Probably don't want him because they've got too many left-sided forwards as it is. And Mbappe, Vinicius and Rodrigo probably wants to play there as well. And they're all shunted into different positions. Barcelona can't afford him. They are struggling to get Dani Olmo registered at the moment. They're having to sell off more parts of the company in order to do it. Juve could, I think. Whether they would or not is the question. Bayern Munich could. Whether they would or not is another question. There don't seem to be many European options. There are definitely options if we want to loan him out. Now, in my 4 scenarios I outline, which are sale to Saudi, obviously the best option, sell to a European club, the second best option, loan with an option or obligation, not awesome, or retain, right? Retain seems to be dead. He didn't come on today at all. Saudi has not been an option if you look at their recent past, although I'm quite sure they'd love the PR coup to turn that word on its head. Given that there are 4 state-owned clubs in that league and 4 state-aligned, with 1 coming up, so it'll be 5. So surely, when I say state-aligned, they are owned by other companies that are owned by the PIF. It's all the same thing, folks. So 9 of the 12 are effectively state-owned. They'd love the PR. Would Marcus want to go play in Saudi, though? Fuck knows, right? Reintegration into the team seems very unlikely from this point forward, which leaves a loan with an option or an obligation the most likely scenario if United want to get rid this winter, right? And that is a terrible position because you're getting rid of a player who, albeit hasn't played very well for a long time, but has the potential in a very low-scoring team. You'd think, new manager, could he get something out of him? He's obviously decided he can't. But you also wouldn't get the financial benefit of it. You'd cover some of the wages, but almost certainly not all of it, plus a loan fee of some kind. And then if it's with an option, if it's in the Jadon Sancho mold, 25, 30, 35 million sort of thing, it's better. United just about broke even on Jadon Sancho in PSR terms, not in cash terms, obviously. With Marcus, you book it all. You would, in theory, book it all because he has zero value on the accounts. I think, as everyone is fairly familiar with now, how this works. With football fans, not supposed to be fucking accountants, but yeah.
Well, you
literally.
I mean,
why?
You've always.
I'm not an accountant.
You were never an accountant.
But
people also occasionally ask me what you do for a living. I have to tell them I genuinely don't know because,
well, right now, I have something in the works that I'm planning for the new year, which I will let everyone know about at some point. Why? I don't know why anyone cares. I worked in venture capital for a while, hence all the finances and the strategy consulting for that for a long time.
That's the bit I never know how to explain what it is. Like, I don't know, something futurism.
I advise CEOs at large corporations on how to run their businesses. I don't know why they would ever take any advice off me, but that's what I was doing. So, Jim, if you'd like a new chief strategy officer, since you fired the last one, then I'm here and I will help you out for a fee. Small one, but, a fee.
I am not available to you, Sir Jim. I accept in my own professional capacity, in which, ethically speaking, I think I would happily take on that gig.
I can't name the names for reasons, but someone I know very well runs a investment bank. And the investment bank, the founder of this investment, he was one of the founders, but the main founder whom this investment bank is named after was fairly intimately involved with the Saudis. And I was like, are they in the bidding? And at the time, the answer was no. And so I was fairly confident they were not in the bidding for this time. And I was like, well, if they get in the bidding and they'd like someone to be their new CEO, put me out and fuck off. It depends. How many millions could the Saudis buy you for?
I was talking to someone about this the other day, and like whenever the conversation comes up around footballers, Jordan Henderson or whoever, like footballers getting to Saudi, and people say, well, if you were paid 40 times the wages for the job that you do, you'd do it too. And I was like, I definitely wouldn't. It's possible. It is possible to prioritize ethics over personal financial wealth. Like we spent, at one point, we could actually have done this for a living. Like, if we had been prepared to take adverts from gambling companies in the kind of peak first podcast boom, like, when we were getting on the front page of iTunes, like but of course we wouldn't like tell you. I'm not actually, I'm not going to tell that. I heard some people say some stuff online that made me super mad. Like, every single sporting thing on the internet is sponsored by gambling companies, to the extent that it does appear that the only purpose of sport is to fuel the gambling industry, and it's really depressing. It's so depressing.
Yeah, there is a proposal in the Premier League at the moment to ban front of shirt advertising. Now, from gambling companies, they're not banning the billboards or the training ground sponsorship or whatever, right?
Or just it's a television coverage, or any football podcast that you listen to.
Yeah. I see the issue I have a different issue than you, because obviously you work with people who are addicted to gambling and see firsthand the absolutely destructive nature it has on their personal lives and their families and all of that. I've had a bet now and again. I rarely do it, so I'm not going to get on a high horse about betting, but I don't particularly want to be an enabler of it. I have a drink too. I'm not sure I'd really want to be an enabler of alcoholism. I live in Seattle. I've mentioned this before on the podcast, so no secret. Cannabis is entirely legal here, so if any cannabis companies want to sponsor this podcast, no. So I think it's a fair and legitimate question, and we got into this by talking about Marcus Rashford's future and would he go to Saudi? And I think the vice economy and its sponsorship of sport is a legitimate question because of the damage some of those vices do to people and their lives and stuff like that. And it would be a legitimate question for Marcus as well, if that is the best option for him, because it might well be the best option for him financially. Don't know how much he cares about that. And for the club, certainly, I would think, if that's the deal that the SPL want to do.
Yeah. Right. Well, Ed,
it's been an hour.
Having put the world to rights.
I'd say it's a pleasure,
again.
But we're talking about Manchester United, so always a pleasure.
It's always nice talking to you too. And hello, everyone. Thanks for all the nice messages and stuff.
Yeah. And talking about money, if you want to pay us money, then
absolutely.
Patreon.com/NQAT pod for the backers content.
It's really tricky, isn't it, as well? Because like money stretched, times are tight, things are difficult. But it does mean that you can have a podcast that is like, you might hate it, in which case probably not going to give it money. But it is only there's no hidden secret agenda afoot. Like there's no influence of nobody saying what we can and can't say and all that kind of stuff. And this podcast is so well supported in that regard, especially for a podcast of our size. It's been amazing the amount of support that we've had to enable it to be gambling ad free since 2009.
I was playing around with the Acast Marketplace recently because I've got a bunch of new people into it. Everyone will have noticed there's quite a few people. And I was like, fuck, I need to give them some money. And so I turned on the ads in Acast and I was like, well, let's see what happens here. And I was pleased to see, although someone did message me, I got an gambling ad. I was like, fuck, you shouldn't have got that. And I was pleased to see in my December accounting, so I've tried it for 3 weeks, that I think there were no gambling ads. I think. So, Quinn, if I got that wrong, I will donate that money and be transparent about it. The £3.50 that I made from it. Yeah.
All right.
Thank you very much, Paul. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. This
Love you.
one is not on YouTube unless I find a cat emoji to put over Paul's face on account of him not having had a shave. What?
I mean, that's not why, just to be clear. It's more like not wanting to participate in YouTube as a concept.
That is totally fair. Who would want to do that? My God, it's a cesspit. Thanks, everyone. Bye now.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.